Listen to what my teacher, Adidar Samraj, has to say about egoity. He calls egoity the activity of the self-contraction. He likens it to a clenched fist, which is an activity that we do unconsciously much of the time, that divides us and separates us from the divine condition of already happiness. These are his divine utterances. There is not now, nor has there ever been, nor will there ever be, an individual being. There is no such thing as an individual being. Your real situation is non-egoic. There is no enlightenment, no evolutionary entrance into the truly spiritual condition of human existence without ego death or the transcendence of mind. The ego is such a heavy grip, such a clench on the divine light, that spiritual experience through spiritual transmission in life does not amount to much for most people. They cannot make it part of their existence. God or happiness or the divine is great. Unfortunately for you, bullshit is greater. There is nothing as obnoxious as a gleeful arsehole. Get up from bed and drop dead. The one thing you fear is death, because you are holding on to your egoic self. If you give up your egoic self by turning to me moment to moment, you die as the ego I. You transcend the physical and mental limitations of the egoic self. You will try all kinds of extraordinary healing methods, psychic methods, yogic methods, anything to get rid of this root sense of pain and agony that you have all the time. You will continue to pursue every kind of means until you realize that all you are doing is pinching yourself. When you realize that, you just take your hand away. There is nothing complicated about that. My first teaching sign to everyone was this gesture of my hand, clenching the fist versus opening the hand. Well, it's presuming darkness versus being radiant. When you open your hand, what happens to your fist? When you release the self-contraction, the me is gone. The search is gone. The entire principle of suffering is undermined. You are, as a matter of habit, and in every part, conformed to the activity and the results of the self-contraction. What is the difference between animals and humans? Fundamentally, the non-humans do not exist in an ego sphere. They exist in an ecosphere, a space-time domain without ego consciousness. This ego, the self-contraction, is the essence of every person personified as I. is not an inner entity or subtle essence. The ego is this activity of the self-contraction. Narcissus is a good symbol for suffering. He has separated himself from all relationships, especially the primary relationships of mother, father, loved one, and environment. He confronts only his own image, which he does not recognize as such. Obviously, Narcissus doesn't know that the face in the water is his own image. He does not recognize his own image or quality as such. And suffering is in the failure of a man to recognize, to know again, his own distraction, which is his own state, his own quality, his own modification. When he recognizes it, he ceases to be enamored, fascinated, and distracted. His drama is undone by simple and yet radical knowledge. If Narcissus understands his fundamental activity, his insane condition will come to an end. So all that a man is suffering is fascination with the force of his own activity and experience, which represents to him the separate self-sense, identification or ego, the field of differentiation, the conceptualized world, and the endless adventure of seeking, mysterious motivation or desire. The I thought, or the presumed to be independent ego self, and the world, and the God idea are the three fundamental categories of reality as reflection. As such, ego I, world out there, and God everywhere are the essential categories of egoic bondage, the tripartite package of world mummery. The ego is an addict. Ego is itself addiction to the body-mind. So the transcending of the body-mind point of view is the transcending of addiction. The human individual in the midst of reality is like a camera in a room, perceiving everything from a fixed point of view. But what does the room really look like? The room can be viewed from every possible point of view in space-time, not merely from any particular point of view, or even a finite collection of points of view. Therefore, no point of view can reveal the room or reality itself, because every point of view is limited and essentially self-referring. There is not anything that anyone does or has done that gives you a right, based on any principle whatsoever, to dissociate from that person or to deny yourself the quality of sympathy and compassion relative to that person. Never wish anyone eternal suffering. Anyone. The thing that makes you unhappy is your own self-contraction. That's it, absolutely. The divine reality, or God, is not ultimately the saviour of our lives. The divine is that to which our lives must be a sacrifice. Indeed, it is the intuition of the divine that permits us to live as a sacrifice rather than a narcissistic, reactive, and self-possessed struggle for ultimate survival. The question, is there a God, reflects an immature, self-contracted state in human beings for which they must become responsible. When one's own contracted state is transcended, the reality of God is overwhelmingly obvious. The essence of unenlightenment is concern for self, for its survival, well-being, pleasure, amusement, perpetuation, and so on. Enlightenment is not merely the transcending of self or the concern for self. It is a matter of the realization of reality itself, which is always already the case. It is inherently, in other words, without self and without a concern for self, which is the open hand disposition. Consciousness is not located until it is utterly set free from identification with separateness, with egoity, with the knot of self-contraction, the knot of the body-mind. You have been contracted upon yourself with emotional force. No amount of thinking, considering, desiring, exploiting, and manipulating yourself in the world can affect that contraction. No awakening of the Kundalini touches it. It has nothing to do with Kundalini. You can have Kundalini experiences until you are yawning with boredom, yet you will not have touched this emotional recoil at all. The first philosophical gesture is, you do not love me. Above the clouds, there is always the sun, forever free of the earthly weather. By tendency, you're always looking at the local weather and not at the sun itself. That is what egoity is about, always suffering the changes of the local patterning that is the body-mind in its egoic bondage. Instead, you must, in every moment, turn to me.